That would be a second picture.
I see her talking and I just see her going up in front of the podium and just saying the most batshit crazy things on the planet and cracking up. And that's what makes it even more funny, because Caroline Levitt believes the crap she's saying. Hello, everyone, and welcome to A More Perfect Podcast. I am your host, Mike Winson. Whether you are talking about Taylor Swift, Dean Cain, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, there's no doubt that Hollywood plays a part in our politics today. For good or bad, what's going on in the United States with the GOP and current administration is going to affect Hollywood. And while I was doom scrolling TikTok, I ran across today's guest. She was talking about the intersection of fascism and Hollywood, and we love hard conversations here. And so I messaged her, and thankfully, she said yes. Her name is Isabella Jamie. She is a Colombian American performer, writer, and producer whose work explores societal issues and the intersection of media, power, and resistance. Hello, Isabella. How are you?
Hi.
Great to have you.
I had more time.
Yeah. No, she sent me this whole thing to read, and I was like, I could read that, or we could get to the conversation. So I figured we'd use some of what you said to help me to ask the questions, but which is fine. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great, and I'm glad to have you here, and I'm looking forward to talking about this as much as you can look forward to talking about fascism in the United States.
Wonderful topic.
Yeah. So first, I think it would be good to let people get to know a little bit about you. What got you into acting, Hollywood, all of that stuff, and what kind of got you into the direction that you kind of have gone into with all of the stuff that you're doing?
Okay, well, so I guess my history in terms of getting into film and storytelling is I was playing a lot of make-believe when I was a kid, and I found a passion for it. I always liked narratives where it was more so, I know it's problematic now, but like Harry Potter, that type of, narrative. I grew up watching Avatar: The Last Airbender and loving these types of narratives that were a little bit more coded into that. Like my favorite movie as a baby was literally The Lion King. And if you watch it now, you'll be like, that's fascism. Actually, what Scar was doing. So, I think I've always been on this path of looking at that specifically from a storytelling standpoint, but also just kind of dealing with it. So I was born in New York. I was raised in North Carolina. So a lot of
I live in North Carolina. So
really, what part?
Charlotte.
Okay. Yeah. I lived closer to Raleigh, Durham, but not exactly in like the city aspect of Raleigh, Durham. So, I grew up around a lot of more conservative thought. I do remember there were certain more ignorant questions that would be asked, especially because I know, right? Like so weird, crazy. Yeah. So I remember growing up and kind of understanding, but not necessarily knowing, like, or having the terminology and words for it, that I was an other in that type of world.
Yeah.
As much as like my family, friends and everything that we grew up with somewhat enough diversity, but it wasn't necessarily like that in my schools. Like I grew up knowing that I was pretty much the only person who looked like me. Like it was either black or white, and there was never like brown or even like dark, bright beige, that kind of thing. So that's a bit more of the history of like what I believe, why I kind of ended up becoming the person that I am now. And in terms of filmmaking, I really I started writing at a young age too, because I was always a very creative kid. So I always was loving dance and singing and playing pretend and acting, which is playing pretend is pretty much acting. Like that's what we do for a living.
Yeah, that's what I do on this podcast. So
yeah, a lot of us as anybody who creates in that regard when it comes to content or like films in general, like we kind of all understand that nowadays as adults, that we are essentially playing make pretend. it's just the way that it is now, and we can make money off of it, and that's like the cool part of the future. Everything
Yeah.
else is looking a little bit more bleak though.
Yeah. It's
But
that's I have always been told that I need to rage bait more, but as people as MAGA and the right wing get a little more dangerous, it makes me not want to rage bait at all.
I get that. I can understand that. There are some jokes that I will it's more so just playing off of how mad people get
Yeah.
for no reason. But at the same time, like, I mean, I don't know. I think it's okay to bully Nazis. That's kind of how I am. So that's more of the rage bait I'll do.
They deserve it,
They do.
in my
They do.
opinion. If you're going to
It
call
totally,
yourself, if you're willing to out yourself as one of those, yeah, no holding
you
back
get
there.
what you're asking for.
You get what you put into the world.
Yeah, if you voted for cruelty, then you're gonna get cruelty from me. I'll give you what you wanted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got into filmmaking because I started writing at a young age too, and I ended up getting into NYU, and I always had like these long, stories in my notes. Like I would finish all my stuff first in class, and then just start writing all these like crazy stories. And so I ended up getting into NYU, and I went over there. And while I was there, I had some core classes, but then also like my minor ended up having me travel the world through literature in a way, but also a lot of that literature was based in like the politics of places. And I learned a lot. I managed to travel a lot too. I studied abroad for a summer, and that was a transformative experience specifically because I was able to travel a lot from putting my apartment up on Airbnb before a lot of stuff kind of like started getting a bit more regulated in that regard.
Yeah.
And so I was a 19, 20-year-old kid just like traveling around Europe. I studied abroad in a formerly fascist country, Spain. And one of my classes was literally called Fascism in Europe, where we understood from that standpoint all of the different crazy things that happened back then, from Germany, Italy, and Spain specifically. And from there, I started taking a special interest in it. I always kind of had a special interest in it, but that kind of solidified it.
Yeah.
And when I got back to the States, I took a Latin American history, literature, and politics, some course that was named similar to whatever I just said. And there also is fascism in Latin America. So I learned about that too. And I had classes that were about colonialism, slavery, genocide. Like that class was literally called On Liberation, where we discussed that type of the different ideologies and political systems that impact us still today. So that's me. I took a special interest in it, and I think that it's important for a lot of people to understand what they're looking at and understand, certain things about the world to be able to create properly.
I think a lot of people in the United States don't realize how much of Europe is obviously there's a group of people starting to try and work their way back in that are fascist, but as a whole, there has been a very strong push to make sure that everyone who grows up understands what fascism is, what it looks like, and how to prevent it from ever happening again.
Yeah. And we don't have the same type of social system in this country, which I, even as a teenager, I remember talking to my world history teacher and being like, shouldn't we spend more than like 2-3 days on World War II and the Holocaust? Like, I think that deserves a little bit more time. And, their whole thing, I understand like the curriculum didn't have enough time for that. But at the same time, we shouldn't only have that information available to us when it is in college.
Yeah.
That should be something that public school students have access to pretty early on, because you can get indoctrinated at home. The U.S. has a lot of cults, has a lot of people who are doing like homeschooling that can end up becoming more of a problematic indoctrination technique. That now we're seeing the rise of that type of nasty ideology spread through what is essentially Christo-fascism.
Mm-hmm.
And we're normalizing it instead of looking at it and saying, no, actually, that's not normal. And we should be, if we're going to say that we're a wonderful melting pot, we should practice that instead of, safeguarding fascist ideology.
Yeah. And now we're getting online lessons for kids that are teaching that slavery wasn't so bad.
Yeah. I mean,
what could go wrong with that?
I mean, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in the South. So there were moments where I had a teacher tell me like, oh no, but the Civil War was about states' rights. And I'm like, to own slaves. It's
states'
not
rights
separated.
to
It's
own those slaves.
To own slaves. It's not separated. It's kind of hand in hand.
Yeah. So you are Colombian American. Have you? One of the things that we like to do is try and just let people know what it's like and you talked about it a tiny bit, but I was interested, just have you noticed from growing up even to now, what's life like growing up with that, living almost because while there's definitely, at least, and again, this is from my obvious white perspective, there's definitely Colombian in you, but if for people that haven't experienced it, I could even see someone just walking by and thinking you're just someone who's got a tan.
Yeah. I mean, I will say as an actor, I have, I this sounds horrible, but at a young age, when I started acting at like 15, I decided to go for a stage name. And that's the name that you know me now as, because I understood that nobody had the last name that I had, that was able to get onto places, like get places. So I followed in the tradition that actually a lot of Latin stars have done. And it's essentially going into more of the ambiguity so that we can actually work. Which that is something that I decided to do. So now I have opened myself up to being able to play Italian or play French or play just like an average white girl, as long as I stay a little bit more pale. And
is that hard in LA?
It depends. I put sunscreen on every day just as a skincare regimen,
for sure.
But I also drive a convertible. So sometimes I'll put a hat on, sometimes not. It just depends.
Just depends what you need at the time.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. Like growing up, you do genuinely feel othered in a way. I had Spanish spoken in my home all the time, but and Spanish was actually technically my first language, but we moved when I was very young. And at that time, the neighborhood that I was in, or just like the people I was around, there weren't as many Latin people. So I think subconsciously, I just started pulling back my ability to speak Spanish fluently and fluidly. And that has resulted in, as an adult, not being able to like fully go, like I understand everything. And this is like a way of being bilingual, but it's not technically fluent the way that I would like. Though it depends, because if I get immersed, then I become fluent, like, I can't snap. But
I'll do it for you.
Fluent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I become fluent very, very fast. So it's that kind of weird thing. But it was enough for me to understand that I wasn't the normal in my community.
It's like me when I go back up to Massachusetts with all the Boston accents. All of a sudden I start sounding more Boston that I never sound anywhere else. Yeah.
So, those things do end up having an effect later on in life. And that is something that affected me. And I know that I'm not the only one, because I have other family members that are either, I have a family member that they grew up in Florida. And they're one of the only family members that was like actually born in the States, like me, on that side of my family, my dad's side. And he speaks bilingual, like fluidly, like bilingual Spanish completely. But that's also because the makeup of Florida, it's more common to have Latinos
Yeah,
than it is in North Carolina.
for
So
sure.
at least when I was growing up and before. So it does impact, and you do end up feeling that, but at the same time, I think it kind of made me a little bit more stubborn. And it's an experience of understanding that, like, it's okay and it's acceptable to accept yourself and to validate yourself instead of bleaching yourself out. And
Yeah.
there's certain aspects of my culture, especially as a Colombian, that other people might not understand. But that's kind of the beauty of diversity. And so, that allows me to accept other people's diversity as well.
Before we go on to the specific Hollywood thing, I just, as another person, because I've had someone from LA on before, because there's just this weird thing that everyone who doesn't live in LA thinks, because they know most people don't realize how big LA is. Did
Yeah.
you experience any of the protests and things going on, and how bad was the burning down of LA when the protests were going on?
Well, LA is still here. You have to
Really?
go. Yeah, yeah, I know, right? It's still here. It hasn't burned down. At least not the same way that the fires were at the beginning of the year.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to not be in town for that. It was very scary to watch through a screen, but that's beside the point.
I
Yeah,
saw Brent Spiner in a live, like, while, like, he was doing a podcast, and in the middle of the podcast he had to leave because the fire had reached his house.
yeah, it was very freaky. Fortunately, I am not wealthy enough to live in a place that was super, super, super impacted. I don't live like in the mountains, and
Yeah.
there are neighborhoods that it's like generationally that they've been there, so it's very sad to watch them
Yeah.
get displaced. But yeah, in terms of protests, I went to some of that,
Okay.
and I did witness some crazy stuff, but it was never something from the protesters. It was more so police brutality and
What?
yeah.
Again, shocked. Color
Shock.
me shocked.
Yeah. And it was very reminiscent of BLM. Seeing some of that, except I was actually seeing it like literally straight up right in front of me, getting rushed by horses, stuff like that. But in terms of burning stuff down, I genuinely worry about the fact that it's probably AI that side is watching and taking as reality. And if it's not AI, because I have seen some clips where I'm like, that is disturbing, and that's not what happened. That's like,
Yeah. I was
my
there.
friend, yeah, I was there. That's not what happened. But also, my friend was one of the people who, when protests first broke out, before June 14th, they were on the freeway and they were like, yeah, I was right around when they had like turned a Waymo over, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, everybody was just like chilling there. It wasn't even that big of a problem. So, seeing the same stuff be recycled, the same footage recycled for like weeks at a time,
Yeah.
it's not nearly as bad, but at the same time, I have to worry too if it's not that bad, because I'm like, are enough people resisting?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of resistance, obviously a lot of what you've been talking about has having to do with resistance, specifically, obviously, to do with Hollywood. If you want to just kind of give people kind of an overview of what you were talking about in that video, specifically regarding, fascism, resistance in Hollywood, then we can kind of delve into that a little bit more.
Oh, I don't even remember. Well, I mean, I remember a little bit. I had tried to film that video like 4 times. So if I say something that didn't actually appear in the video, I apologize.
As long as you believe it, it's okay.
Yep. Essentially, it's extremely important to understand that not only is media at its very core a sense of propaganda, because no matter if an artist or creator is conscious of what they are sharing or not, it is still sharing their ideology. but it is going to be impacted because there is a very long history of media not only serving as propaganda, and especially in the United States when we look at the history of film, but it is also just such a tool that I don't think people understand the strength of how that tool can actually impact and influence people's minds and influence, their beliefs.
Mm.
So essentially, I just was talking about how we need to understand that, and there's different ways to resist that as creators, where we need to be able to pick out and look at things through that lens that this is potentially something where it can negatively impact us going forward, as artists. So I think I mentioned, Paramount had announced at one point at the beginning of
Yeah.
everything that they were going to be getting rid of DEI initiatives because the CEO of Paramount, this might get me blacklisted, I don't care. The CEO of Paramount, they're essentially, and there's certain deals that we've seen with like this whole Stephen Colbert thing that showcases a lot of the little political and financial decisions that are occurring so that they can
Sure.
get the freedom that they need, the way that they can get into the room to be able to report on these things. So, but at the beginning of this whole ordeal, witnessing that happen and then thinking, wait a second, like, isn't all of the unions, like all of these unions are made of people who would go under that DEI thing, whether it be women, LGBTQIA, or just BIPOC in general. So why wouldn't we immediately strike,
Yeah.
considering that is a threat and something that is going to be negatively impacting our ability to work. Sorry, I'm like getting ahead of myself. But it would negatively impact our way of
Yeah.
working and continuing. And it was surprising to watch like nobody say anything, until now, where now the WGA is trying to fight that when it comes to freedom of speech. Self-expression is going to come under attack under fascism, and so it's better that we all understand that and move to secure our rights to self-expression as artists,
Yeah.
because that's kind of like the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And it's extremely important.
Do you see, because there are obviously some very outspoken people in Hollywood towards what's going on. Gosh, what's his name? Why am I blanking? I literally was thinking about him 5 seconds ago. He played the Hulk on Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo. I love that man.
Yeah.
Love that man. No one, I don't think anyone has been more outspoken than that man in the
There
line.
are a ton of people. It's just that they're all kind of separated, and I think
Yeah.
that's
Well,
one
that's
of the problems that we're facing too.
and that goes into the question. How do you see a split happening over there, at least in Hollywood, and do you see a majority going one way, or are we looking at like a 50? Are we looking at a kind of like where it feels like the country is, even though you could argue the country's not a 50-50 split, at least but sometimes it feels that way.
It feels that way. And there's a lot that goes into it feeling that way, like online bots and a lot of the
Sure.
stuff that we've been seeing for the past decade, which is a whole other conversation. But it does go into play with some of these
Yeah.
things that we're experiencing. I do think that we're going to see more of a split. I think there's a lot of financial incentive for inclusion and diversity, and I think people are going to be seeing that. I mean, we've seen it with the commercials that are occurring, which I believe I mentioned it, so that's good. But yeah, we're seeing that split already, and the problem is that where we were at before was not nearly as progressive as we want to believe.
Right.
And so we might just see the pendulum completely swing into full on, no, we're progressing regardless and without you, which we are seeing in California politics in general. So that's at least somewhat good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not a massive fan of Newsom, but I love what he's doing right now.
You're fine with that because most of California A lot of us have issues with him, but at the same time, it's like, look, we kind of have to just go with whatever horse is going that way at that point.
In
The
fact,
more horses we have going that way, the better. You know?
In fact, he just recently announced his own meme coin, and he's called it the Trump corruption coin.
Oh, I love that. That's funny, actually. That's really funny. Yeah, I remember back in 2017, after the first win, and I say that because the Electoral College, all the crazy shit that we subject ourselves to as a population of this country. In terms of that, I remember a friend I had a friend that was knowingly creating fake news. And I had always been a little bit like, why are you doing that? That's like a little weird. That's kind of psychopathic. And he kind of got nasty because I called him a psychopath, which I would call him again, because that was psychopathic type of behavior. He knew that he was manipulating people and sharing stuff that was completely false. He saw the demographics and everything, and he talked to me about it. But what was the point? Yeah, I do think that like the trolling aspect of it was something that he had mentioned, where he was like, this is the first time that like 4chan and internet trolls actually affected an election. And I think about that still, and it's one of the main reasons why I'm okay with Newsom behaving the way he is. Like I could always say, look, I think we need to do more when it comes to getting rid of kidnapping that is occurring especially in our state, because that's where we have the power, but like in any of these things, because it's fucked up. But at the very least, the trolling aspect of it is something that apparently just like activates people enough to throw their support, which is concerning at a psychological level. But at the same time, if it's going to get the job done, then the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's kind of how they functioned. And so we have to understand and adopt some of those things so that we can get what we need across.
So it's interesting that you talk about your friend who was knowingly making misinformation, putting out false content. Because, you know, one of the issues that we have on the internet as a whole, especially for content creators, is the way you get paid is by clicks. And the way you get clicks is by being as absolutely batshit crazy as humanly possible, which makes people get angry themselves, which makes people watch, which gets you clicks, which gets you money. So do you see, from your perspective at least, do you foresee, just like the possibility of Hollywood, at least when you saying going progressive and just leaving some people behind, do you foresee a change happening just in social media and content in general towards changing how we benefit, how we monetize content creation? Because at some point it's going to get so insane that personally I feel like it's got to change.
Yeah, at least in the United States, I would say we're probably going to be running this train for a while, because it's beneficial for the other side that we're, fighting. I do know that there are regulations that I've been tracking stuff, like worldwide. So I know that there are regulations that are occurring. I think it was announced like a few days ago, that they are going to be regulating that type of thing when it comes to the EU, for example. So, we're going to see some aspects of social media change in that regard. But for now, especially because there is an incentive to do that for fascists in the United States, we're probably going to continue along that. And it's going to be more so of a I don't want to say self-censored, but like self put out there, like we are going to have to be the ones to change that ourselves, because we're not really going to be functioning with the same type of regulation that other countries that actually care about their citizens function.
So by doing that ourselves, you mean we as consumers of the content are going to have to not show benefit to the people that are doing the misinformation in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I regularly watch creators that talk about other creators, and they will analyze those things and they will look at it in their own perspective. And I think, there is a merit to that when you don't want to look at it yourself and give it that view and give it a click or anything like that, any kind of engagement. So I think a lot of stuff is going to probably move towards that, and just deplatforming people in general. I know that the social media businesses on their side are not going to be deplatforming anybody that, goes for them. We're going to see that a lot with like TikTok, especially the changing guidelines, all of that. But I think it's going to be more so the audience itself that puts clicks or money towards what they want or what they don't want. I know I practice ethical piracy. If there is a director that I don't like, for example, a Roman Polanski film that I'm like, I don't want to download it anywhere. I don't want to find it on Amazon. I don't want to do that kind of thing. I don't want to give it any more than it already has. We will find a download, and we'll watch it that way instead, because it's not going to be giving a view or any monetary financial gain towards them. So ethical piracy is going to become a lot more of a practice when it comes to that kind of avoiding fascistic.
And I personally may have done videos like that just recently on TikTok with some Christian nationalist podcasters and things like that, because they were driving me absolutely crazy. So I completely understand and agree, which is why on this channel, we try not to clickbait whenever we can, because in the end, it's the way you fix things, at least in my opinion, is by having hard conversations and being realistic about what is going on in the world.
I wanted to share a resource that has completely transformed my way of looking at media. And it's a book that I read a while ago. It's called Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator by Ryan Holiday. And that's actually one of the biggest wells of information that you can find when it comes to media, the blogosphere, and news, the news cycle, and even advertising and marketing. So I highly recommend that to anybody who wants to educate themselves further on that. It is something that I think it's one of the most important books that we can come across right now, especially to be able to understand the media landscape. I mean, it talks about how clicks and everything generate money, how rage bait does that, yellow journalism, and how it all goes into play. And it essentially gives you a step-by-step, but it's also doing so to inform the audience and let them know this is what is happening to you. This is how it functions. You can use it if you want for good or bad, but this is at least to inform the audience of what's going on.
Yeah. I'll make sure to put a link to that for anyone who's listening that is interested in checking it out. So I told you about this at the beginning. We got a game coming up that I decided to think up at the last moment, because I think it's really cool to have someone from Hollywood in here. And so we're going to do that. But before we do that, I'm interested in how you see resistance in the United States moving forward. Because for me personally, I see a lot of people talk about resistance and try and compare it one-on-one to, say, the Revolutionary period or even the Civil Rights period, all the different periods that we see where resistance was used in some way, shape, or form to get change. I'm very much of the idea that once 2020 hit, or not 20, once the 2000s hit and we got the internet, the world changed. And in many ways, resistance changed. So how do you see resistance coming about in the United States, in the world now, comparing it to like, back in the day.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a big one.
And I need you to do it in just 1 minute. I'm just kidding. You
Let me
don't need
just
to do it in
solve
1
all
minute.
the world's problems.
Exactly.
Okay. So obviously with technology, it is simultaneously the worst and best thing for
Yeah.
us. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are very resistant to the technology itself. A lot of people might not understand. And I do think that there are some people who do. So we're going to see movement in that you can weaponize the same stuff that's been weaponized against us and do the same thing back. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are waking up and loving Newsom, even if they might have, criticism. It's essentially fighting fire with fire, except your fire is a lot stronger because you at least understand how it's negatively impacting you, and you can at least turn it around and do the same back to that.
Yeah.
So in terms of how different things have happened, and I am going to have to talk about who I am as a person, my culture. I'm not sure how many people know this, but Colombia has been within civil conflict for the past 6, almost 7 decades. So a lot of people don't understand that. They think of Colombia and they only think of narcos and the drug trafficking trade and all of that. But that actually feeds into some of the political situations that have happened in Colombia for, like I said, almost 7 decades.
Yeah.
And it's fluctuating a lot. So that's something that I kind of take a look at, because I think that there are so many different types of people in this country that it's not going to function the same way that Nazi Germany or Italy, with Mussolini, or even Spain functioned with Franco. We're not going to see the same type of issue with like how Chile with Pinochet. We're not going to see that type of thing because the makeup of everybody, it's so different, and we have so many different people who come from all these places that it informs the resistance aspect of it. So resistance can happen in any small little thing, and any little thing can pop off like a hot civil war. So I need people to understand that, like, that can actually happen. In Colombia, we had leftist militias actually start, being formed at certain parts. And now we're still having issues like with a lot of the political situation. Like I said, it fluctuates this year. It seems like it's heating up a little bit. But there's that type of history that we can look at as Americans, as a collective, that we can look at what has been going on all over the world, because we have all those varying perspectives. We have the immigrants from those places, and we can see how resistance occurred there. So it's a mixture of technology. It's a mixture of stuff that is a lot softer, like financial resistance, boycotts, pulling your taxes, which I'm like, come on, soft secession of sorts. And we also might see violence. And I actually think it's, I hate to say it, I think it's somewhat okay, because at this point, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any type of getting over this conflict without some sort of violence impacting somebody. So unfortunately, it's either, the good side has to, become violent to protect innocent people, or that violence is going to be enacted on those innocent people without any type of intervention. We've already seen people resisting to the point where, I had friends talking to me about the Korean American soldier that shot at ICE agents and Border Patrol in Texas and went on the run. That's something that not a ton of people know, but that is
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, that is something that happened, and that is something that is like crazy to think about. But we're gonna see a lot more of that type of thing happen. And I say this because, like I said, Colombia has gone through civil conflict for the past 6 to 7 decades. So when we look at civil conflict and how it manifests, I would honestly say that we have already been in some sort of civil conflict for a while, because of the sense of I'm going to say words that are probably going to get it, like, banned, but stochastic terrorism.
Mm.
That is something that has been occurring with mass shootings for the longest time. A lot of the people behind mass shootings, majority of them have been from misogynistic or racist, fascistic and conservative ideologies.
Sure.
So we have to look at those patterns and we have to understand, these are aspects that we are fighting at the same time as fighting an actual systematic structure that is being collapsed on purpose. And we have to understand that not only do we have to create against that, not only as filmmakers, but as organizers in general, but we have to see different avenues of resistance that we can do, that we can be proactive within, so that we are either lessening the impact or completely nullifying it.
Well, at least we know that if you're in DC, a grand jury won't hold you responsible for throwing a sandwich at an ICE agent.
Yeah.
At least we're not there.
A lot more sandwiches thrown now.
At least we're not there yet. Okay, so I'm excited about this game. I hope it works out because I think it's going to be fun. So, in honor of you being here, I decided to create a game. It's called What If We Did It? And in this case, it's if you were to make a movie about Trump's administration, who would play the different parts? And I've picked specific people because obviously he's got a lot of people, but I've picked kind of the main ones. And I'd be interested to see who you would pick to play the people. I have people picked out on my own side. So if you're like, I don't know, I can at least say some people so we can kind of talk about it. But I just thought it'd be fun because it reminded me of when what's his face played Trump during the Sebastian, which he was really good, by the way. That was really good. Okay, so what if we did it? If you were to make a movie about Trump's administration, who would play Stephen Miller? And I think my choice, if you hear it, you're going to go yes, 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 yes. But I'm interested to see if you can think of someone first.
I mean, I'm going the full producers route.
Yeah.
So I would pick Danny DeVito just to be like ultra like.
Okay.
Nasty.
Okay.
Towards Stephen Miller, but also give Danny DeVito something.
Yeah.
To eat up.
Okay, so I picked Corey Stoll.
Oh, let me look them up because
he's the guy who played the bad guy in Ant-Man.
I haven't seen Ant-Man.
What?
That's one of the ones I haven't seen.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I've seen him in other stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
He would be, I feel like he would be a perfect person to play that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, RFK Jr.
I'm like, I don't know.
So the person that I picked isn't alive anymore, but I think he just reminds me of that, is Val Kilmer.
Okay, I can see that. I was gonna pick Jim Carrey.
Okay. He would be funny doing that.
That's why I'm like, I'm going the full producers route.
Yeah, no. And I have one person where the answer is for the exact reason that I think she would be hilarious doing it. Just so you know, that one's coming a little bit later. But I was like, I saw it and I was like, yes, this person would be perfect. Kristi Noem.
These are tough because I'm like, who do I know that? Like, who can I imagine in that? Not somebody.
I put Courtney Cox.
Yeah, I could see that.
Especially, no offense to Courtney, if you ever want to come on an episode, you're more than welcome. Right. But the post lots of
cosmetic procedures.
Courtney Cox. Yeah, which, for those of you that are living under a rock and don't know, Kristi Noem has. If you've ever seen an early picture of Kristi Noem to a now, it's insane. It's insane.
She looks completely like a different person.
Did you see the South Park episode? Please tell me you saw it.
I didn't. I've been like traveling all over, so I have been like going crazy because I haven't been able to like fully, I have seen clips. I've seen clips of it.
At least you've seen clips of it.
I thought it was hilarious. The melted face Like,
Okay. Yes,
fucking
the melted
hilarious.
face. Yes. Tulsi Gabbard.
I'm trying to think, but like, I don't know. Who did you pick?
I picked Gal Gadot.
I could see that one too. That one makes sense.
Yeah.
That one makes sense.
I just, give her some longer hair with that white streak. I could totally, because
Yeah.
Tulsi always tries to act tough, and Gal Gadot could just beat up literally everybody. So
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Pete Hegseth.
Josh Brolin?
Okay.
But that would be weird. Like, again, I'm like, okay, I could see
I mean, I'm
him.
not sure we could get any of these people to play the parts, because no one would
No,
want to
well,
go
yeah,
that
of course.
crazy. But
Yeah, right. But like, I could see that type of like drunken
yeah,
villain type coming from Josh Brolin.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I picked Timothy Oliphant. I can never say his last name.
Let me see. I'm like, I always blank on some names, so
Yeah.
I could totally see that one too. That one looks a lot like him.
Yeah.
I'm changing my answer. That one's great. That one's great.
I had some other people, but I want to go to the one that I think this is the hilarious one. So Caroline Levitt. And when I say the name, you're going to go, yes, 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 I think.
I'm going to get so shady. It's because there's like so many beautiful women in Hollywood that I'm like, who would play Caroline Levitt? Like, who would convincingly be able to play her?
Yeah.
All shade to Caroline Levitt.
Of course.
I'd say Lena Dunham. Just to like an extra little bit of comedy there. It's just, because.
So I went full comedy on my choice. Amy Schumer.
I could totally see that one too. That would be a second pick.
I see her talking, and I just see her going up in front of the podium and just saying the most batshit crazy things on the planet and cracking up. And that's what makes it even more funny, because Caroline Levitt believes the crap she's saying. And if Amy Schumer did it for like an SNL episode, we'd all be cracking up.
No, it would be hilarious because no, I could totally see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know I put you on the spot. If I'd thought about it, if I'd made this up earlier, I would have messaged you and said, we're playing this game. Think of some people.
I'm not great with casting.
That's fine. That's fine. I just thought it would be fun to go through that because, we can't be serious and talk about resistance for our entire lives. We got to have some fun here every once in a while.
We definitely do. Yeah. It's important to make it entertaining too.
Exactly. Okay. So I feel like we've talked about a lot of things, and I think we've made a lot of people think about a lot of stuff. Is there anything that you want to make sure that anyone listening to this hears before we end?
The biggest things that I think everybody, when they get into this industry, struggles with is the sense that pretty much everything is put together with like a 2x4 piece of plywood, some staples, gum, and duct tape. And so the glamour behind Hollywood is made there for you to obviously glamorize, right? So I hope that when people look at things, they look at things with a bit more of a precise eye. That they look at things with a view and perspective that understands that, sometimes what you're seeing is what they want you to see. And I don't mean they by any shadowy figure or anything. It's just, that's what filmmaking is.
Yeah.
My partner and I have talked about how, like I already said, filmmaking is make-believe. And he likes to say, we lie for a living. And that's the thing. A lot of these sets, a lot of studios and everything, if you look behind the camera, it's a complete mess. Like I can tell you that that's pretty much what making and creating is. This looks nice because it's what I'm showing you.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that when you're watching every single
you don't want to see what's over on this side of the camera.
Exactly. You don't want to see what's on the floor right around me or like any of that. And so all bits of media have that. And we have to at least look at things understanding that. Not even casting at a certain point can be used in that regard. And that's why I have said, media is a form of propaganda. When we are filmmakers, we are essentially making propaganda because we're showing the audience what we want them to see. That's our job.
Yeah.
But with that job comes that responsibility of understanding it, and also knowing that like we can essentially show them whatever we want them to show, like whatever we want them to see.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, especially if we are not conscious of the ideologies within it. So, for example, certain things that might seem like wins can actually be a show of, oh, that's not that much of a win. It might seem like it's a win for people, but it's actually not. For example, Anora. I'm going to get a bit controversial with this, but stick with me.
Okay.
So what I've learned over the past decade is that Russian propaganda, it kind of attacks you in different ways. Like it doesn't always have to be positive for it to be demoralizing and for it to function. So I don't know how many people know this, but Anora was sold as an indie darling, low budget. It was only $6 million to make the movie, and oh my god, it's a huge thing that it won all these Oscars, which sounds great. But when we actually peel back and look at some of the aspects of how production went, we start seeing the cracks. For example, I don't quote me on it, but I believe it. I had read something where it said it was $18 million that went into advertising it for the Academy to even consider it as a winner.
Really?
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying like it might seem like it's a win, but they're not going to let you know other aspects. There's also aspects of funding movies where you have to consider, how did this get funded and where is the funding's ideology going through? I believe, honestly, that there was Russian oligarch money that went through Anora. That even if it might seem like, yeah, it was a $6 million budget, they didn't put in a lot of money. That doesn't mean that somebody who owns a location wouldn't donate that location.
Yeah.
And then have some kind of say when it comes to financing. That's something that actually ends up happening a lot in the creative world. Like, you get funding, but then it's also, you might have something impacted in the creative space that they are giving you $10 million. So now you're going to have to change some things for what they want. That's something that is very common. And then another aspect when it comes to specifically Anora is that one of the actors was regularly sharing like pro-Russian propaganda on their own social media. And so by uplifting that, we have to start looking at things with a little bit more of a suspicious eye. It might not be that the plot itself is that Russia wins and blah, 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 blah. Like it might not be that it's showing that they're, good or bad or whatever. It could be that they're showing that they're stupid or whatever the hell. But we do have to take a look at the behind the scenes aspect too, and really look at how that can negatively impact us going down the line. When we are selling something and saying it's amazing that this thing was made with $6 million and it's an indie darling and blah, 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 but they're negating telling you, yeah, we had money from here and we also put this much money in advertising, and also this is like a Russian propagandist that's in it. Now it starts kind of coming to, it starts forming that you're like, oh, that might not actually be that good. And so when we look at stuff, we do need to approach things with that type of suspicious eye and really get an understanding of who is benefiting from something, and what is it trying to tell me. Like, what is it saying it's telling me versus what is it actually telling me? And that's something that it is about media literacy specifically.
Yeah. And we know media literacy these days is a struggle.
It is.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Isabella?
Okay. Any of my handles online, they're all literally just my name, Isabella Jamie. That is Jamie with 2 I's. You can find me on YouTube. I have not posted in a while though. You can find me on TikTok. I'm about to start that series, and I'm happily going to be sharing about the Hays Code and all this cinematic history that kind of can be utilized to resist and to understand media literacy, all of that. You can find me on Instagram. I'm okay with followers. I also am very, very highly politically active on Instagram. Like, I will share the traumatic shit, not super traumatic, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The stuff that some people don't want to really have burst that Instagram fantasy bubble, but I will be the one to share it. Yeah, those are my main 3 platforms, but you can find me pretty much, if you can find me with that name, on Substack or anywhere else other than X, because I'm not giving them any of my energy.
Same. And obviously we will put all of her links down below so you can make sure to find her. Isabel, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This has been actually amazing. Not that I was nervous that it wouldn't be, but this has been a really cool talk, and it was great to get to know you. And hopefully, as things go on, maybe we can have you back, and we can look back and say, okay, we talked about this however many months ago. Where are we at now? So,
I mean, I'm happy to do that kind of thing. I think it's important to, be able to look back at stuff and see all the trends.
Yeah.
How it went out.
Thank you, everyone who made it all the way to the end of this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. The only way that we can grow here is thanks to people like you engaging with this content. If you like what we do, if you like this coalition you're trying to build, if you want to be a part of this movement, make sure you like and subscribe and share it with friends and family and anyone else who you think might benefit from this. Thank you again, Isabella, for being here, and we will see you guys next time on a More Perfect Podcast. Bye, guys.